My guidance counselor made me admit to cheating so her daughter could keep the valedictorian spot. Mrs. Hutchins called me into her office during fourth period and closed the door behind me with a quiet click that felt ominous. She told me to sit down, her voice carrying none of the warmth she usually showed students seeking college guidance. My name is Daniel Cross, and I was 17 years old, ranked first in my class with a 4.89 weighted GPA, sitting across from the woman who'd helped me apply to MIT Early Action. She opened a manila folder and slid a test paper across her desk. My AP Calculus exam from last week, marked with a red 98 at the top. She asked if I recognized it, and I said yes. I'd worked on that exam for 2 hours and felt confident about my answers. Mrs. Hutchins pulled out a second paper, also marked 98, belonging to a student named Jeremy Lawson, who sat 3 seats away from me. She said the answers were identical, including the work shown for every problem. Even the mistakes matched exactly. She asked me to explain how that was possible if I hadn't copied from Jeremy's exam. I looked at both papers and saw what she meant. The handwriting was different, but the mathematical work was identical, following the same steps and making the same small error on problem 14. I told her I didn't know how that happened, but I hadn't cheated. Mr. Garrett always arranged desks far apart during exams specifically to prevent cheating, and I'd been focused entirely on my own work. Mrs. Hutchins leaned back in her chair and said the evidence was clear and concerning. As my guidance counselor, she wanted to help me through this situation, but I needed to be honest about what I'd done. I insisted I hadn't cheated and asked to speak with Mr. Garrett about this. She said Mr. Garrett had flagged the identical papers and brought them to her attention this morning. He was disappointed because he trusted me, and now that trust was broken. I felt my stomach drop because Mr. Garrett had been my favorite teacher for 2 years, someone who'd encouraged my interest in mathematics and written one of my college recommendation letters. The idea that he thought I was a cheater made me feel sick. Mrs. Hutchins said I had 2 options. I could deny the cheating and face a formal academic integrity board hearing, which would delay my college applications and potentially result in a failing grade for the course, plus a permanent mark on my transcript. Or I could accept responsibility now, take a 0 on the exam, and she'd work with administration to keep this informal. I'd still maintain my class standing and graduate on time, though my calculus grade would drop to a B for the semester. She said making this decision quickly would show maturity and character, the kind of qualities colleges valued. I asked how accepting a 0 would keep my class standing when that would drop my GPA significantly. She smiled and said that was where her help came in. She could work with Mr. Garrett to offer me extra credit opportunities that would offset the 0. The goal wasn't to punish me forever, just to acknowledge the mistake and move forward appropriately. I told her again that I hadn't cheated, and I wanted to understand how the papers ended up identical before accepting any consequences. Mrs. Hutchins' expression hardened, and she said I needed to think carefully about the path I was choosing. A formal hearing would involve multiple teachers reviewing the evidence, my parents being called in, and the whole situation becoming part of my permanent record. MIT had already received my application with my current GPA and class rank. If they learned I was under investigation for academic dishonesty, they'd likely withdraw my acceptance even if I was eventually cleared. The mere accusation would be enough to raise questions about my integrity. She said she was offering me a way to handle this quietly and preserve my future, but I was being stubborn and short-sighted. I asked to see Jeremy's paper more closely, and she pulled it back across the desk. She said I didn't need to examine the evidence. It was already clear what had happened. I said if the papers were truly identical, then either Jeremy copied from me or someone had access to both papers after we turned them in. She asked if I was accusing Jeremy of cheating now, trying to deflect blame onto another student. I said I was saying I didn't know what happened, but I knew I hadn't cheated. Mrs. Hutchins stood up and told me to go back to class and think about this decision. She was giving me until the end of the school day to come back with my answer. If I chose to accept responsibility, she'd have the paperwork ready. If I refused, she'd file a formal complaint with the Academic Integrity Board first thing tomorrow morning. I walked out of her office feeling disoriented and scared. The accusation made no sense because I'd never cheated on anything in my life. My academic record was spotless, built on 4 years of genuine work and study. More importantly, I was ranked first in my class ahead of 43 other seniors. The person ranked second was Rebecca Hutchins, Mrs. Hutchins' daughter, sitting at 4.87 GPA compared to my 4.89. Rebecca and I had been competing for valedictorian since freshman year, trading the top spot back and forth until this semester when I'd pulled ahead. The valedictorian gave the graduation speech, received special recognition at awards night, and had the distinction noted on college applications. It was worth fighting for, especially since I'd worked incredibly hard to earn it. I went to my next class but couldn't focus on anything except the meeting with Mrs. Hutchins. Something felt wrong about the whole situation. To see the full story, click the link below or go on my channel.